Donna Kate. First of all, in the semantics, you don't have to defend at all to me your right or need to make new terms. Basically, we don't know exactly, we don't have a specific. Okay, the word thought or thinking, it is applied to a bunch of things we saw in the world, and we go, what's this? Thinking, and we put it in there. Some of them shouldn't have been in there, but a lot of them should be, but simply need to be categorized differently. It's different kinds of thinking. I mean, a big area of this is the kind of thinking that computers do. It used to be that doing a computation was considered thinking, but if we can automate that in computers, we wonder, is that really what we mean by thinking? Well, yeah, it's automated thinking, though. You add an adjective. Generally, unless you're going to reject something all the way out of the set and say, well, it was kind of an illusion, this thing shouldn't have been there at all. We thought that the clouds were thinking about raining, and no, that shouldn't even go in that set. But for things that kind of do, but then we go, well, maybe it's not really the essence of the kind of thinking we want to talk about in a particular conversation, well, that gets some sort of a qualifier, and it's a particular kind of thinking, like you're doing with your philosophical or proto-philosophical, you might call it, or whatever. This kind of thinking. We are, we're in the same ballpark in a lot of things here, but really, no, I have what is, compared to you, a very extreme view of animal cognition, and I really don't think there are any fundamental distinctions. There's only incidental distinctions. You can, if you wanted to define, say, structured thought, and you want to call structured thought using the human language, then, if you build the word human in, and so you don't have to put it as a qualifier of human thought, because humans are the only ones that have human thought. But we share mammalian thoughts with other mammals and so on and so forth. And I really don't think, I think there's a rumination feeling in mammals, and this is the philosophical urge. And it can be done without language. And remember, really, all mammals have a basic, very powerful kind of language, because it's body language. That's the invention of language, really, that as we understand it, as mammals at least. And it really does require a forebrain, it looks like. I mean, the body language of birds and reptiles is definitely a body language, but it's not the kind that we get, whereas we get the body language of mammals. And the thing about this body language is that no matter what the feeling of the mind, it can be expressed in the body, including novel thoughts that hadn't been thought before. Okay, a new feeling, can be expressed, which opens up the possibility of creating a feeling that's not stimulated by your surroundings, creating a feeling which is the anticipation of some situation which could generate that feeling. In other words, to have this anticipatory stuff like you described with the leg cut off. Now, if you had just been in isolation and grown in isolation without exposure to all this fiction where legs are blown off, you wouldn't have that imagining. That was given to you by people that did experience it and did go to war and experienced it in this daily kind of sense that you were talking about, the sunrise. So you're making an arbitrary distinction in that, probably only humans would have that much concept of anticipation. And probably days of the week, are not going to have a concept represented in most mammals, because the days of the week it's not a cycle that really matters to them. But what about months? What about January? They have no word January. They have no conception of January as that period of time. But winter, the concept of a winter, they probably can bring to mind a memory of winter and express that in their body language. And that is the symbology and the element of winter. And if they were to remember winter while they were, bonding with their offspring, and have that expression for their offspring that might not have experienced winter yet, that offspring would get something of an idea of, whoa, what's that? And when they experience winter, perhaps they would know. Okay. And I really think fundamentally that there is no kind of cognition that you don't, in humans, that you don't pretty much see in other mammals, unless you start getting sort of arbitrary in your threshold. When you're talking about, you meant by thinking, these thinking of human systems of thought, ontologies, and yeah, well, that's human thought, yeah. That's probably pretty human. But in a more broad sense, do animals have ontologies? Yes, they know the things, and there's meaning to those things and what role those things play. Yes, I think all animals have an ontology. They can't talk about it. They're not self-reflective, so they don't describe to you what their ontology is, except for by expressing it in their behavior, which ultimately is the extreme body language, right? When you, not just your posture, but what you're actually doing, it does communicate how you're thinking, and the fact that that you have ontologies, you believe these things exist, and you expect them to be there and provide you hear a bell ring and you're a dog and you expect there to be food. You have a concept, an ontology. The bell is a thing, food is a thing, and also epistemology. No, they don't have a self-reflective epistemology where they can talk about epistemology. They have an applied epistemology. They apply epistemology. So there's an epistemology in there. We can talk about it. If it's necessary to be able to talk about it in order for it to have been actually an epistemology, we can. Because when we talk about how the dog thinks, we talk about the dog's ontology, what matters to the dog, and we talk about the dog's epistemology, how the dog judges its knowledge. You can sit there and try to play with the dog's head and fool the dog and figure out which things the dog will be fooled by, which it won't, and watch a learning process as those things shift around. And so, yeah, I think it is an interesting conversation. Yeah, a lot of this is how we will agree and just sort out some terminology, but that's exactly what I think should happen in this kind of conversation in terms of the semantics. And in terms of the rest, yeah, I mean, I believe that you are less conventional than most in terms of what kinds of cognitive processes other animals, other creatures might have. And that you might yield to, well, let's just distinguish by name, these different kinds of cognitive or pseudo-cognitive or semi-cognitive processes, and we'll just agree to call them different things, and that'd be good enough. Some people are like, no, that's not going on. Those are totally autonomous. There's no thinking. It shouldn't be called in the same category at all. And in that sense, we agree. But after that agreement, no, you still are more classical oriented than me. You want to make more of these distinctions. And I have a strong rejection of that, because I believe that we just want to call a certain kind of thinking so special because only we have it making us special. And in reality, all the animals are evolving. They're all coming towards or inventing to have the kinds of ideas we have that would make us special. They have the prototypes of them. In some cases, they have them in place, but there's just other ideas in the network of ideas that would be necessary to express it the way we do. And ultimately, what you're going to say is special about humans is that we are human. It's a tautology, we're unique, What makes us human? We have 2 legs and so there you go. We have birds have 2 legs. Well, we have 2 legs and 2 arms. And we don't have feathers. It's whatever it takes to describe us uniquely, because we are a pattern that, repeats. It's similar and to each other and dissimilar to others. And so we're going to look for those patterns, and it's okay to do, but you just can't make some sort of fundamental. No, we're just an animal. We're just thinking all the animals can think. There's probably animals out there having some sublime philosophical thoughts that we'll learn if we ever figure out how to understand them.